Grand Theft Auto 5 is without a doubt one of my favorite games of all time. It's packed with unforgettable characters, has a world that feels more alive than most modern open world games despite being almost 13 years old, and has some of the best written dialogue I've seen in gaming. But for as much as I enjoy the game and its story, every time I reach that final mission where Michael, Franklin, and Trevor take down everyone who's wronged them, I can't help but feel a little underwhelmed by the villains. But I can never put into words why. So today I'll be analyzing the 4 main antagonists to see what works, what doesn't, and ultimately why GTA5's villains fail to meet a satisfying end.
I think I'm a liar, a cheater, some kind of a killer and a thief!
Haynes is a corrupt FIB agent who uses Michael's past to blackmail him and by extension the rest of the protagonists into doing the FIB's dirty work.
You are my boy now, amigo.
And he's the only antagonist in the story that feels like a constant threat. He's egotistical, smug, and values his career over everything else, including the trio's lives. He forces them to do insanely dangerous missions with the promise of freedom after completion, but he somehow always has one more problem that needs solving.
Michael, you'd be doing me a very big favor. And if you do this, I will make sure that all your files are deleted.
He's essentially the embodiment of if you give a mouse a cookie, if the mouse wanted to steal a toxic nerve agent. It honestly feels like with every mission our protagonists complete, they are only digging themselves deeper into a hole they can't get out of. But what really elevates his character is his eye for self-preservation. He's willing to do anything to weasel his way out of a situation, even going as far to shoot himself in the leg to avoid being exposed at one point in the story. And with Haynes' corrupt actions falling under more scrutiny by the FIB and IAA as the story progresses, it feels like at any moment he will have our characters arrested or killed just to keep his head above water, both of which he eventually tries to do. With his power over the characters and his disregard for anyone but himself, Haynes is a clear looming threat that needs to be terminated. But when that time finally comes, it's just disappointing. The final mission doesn't treat Haynes as the threat he is, instead lumping him in with Strech and Wei Cheng, 2 far less developed characters, to be dealt with in a quick and unceremonious way. The trio never gets to confront Haynes for all he's put them through, and Steve never even knows he's lost. He's just there one moment and gone the next. It's a very unsatisfying ending to an otherwise great villain whose presence drove so much of the story. And I wish we could have seen him realize he was finally in a situation he wasn't going to slither his way out of. But if Steve Haynes doesn't get the spotlight in the final mission, who does? Well, that would be
a Fed, Steve Haynes, Dave Norton. I own shopping malls. I would not employ those 2 clowns then.
Devon Weston serves as the game's primary antagonist. He's a narcissistic billionaire who has a finger in many pies, including the FIB, and utilizes these connections to get what he wants.
Tell me something. You like football? I got a stake in a sports investment venture. You like the market? I got some funds you can manage. Name your poison, man.
It's supposed to be a critique on capitalism, primarily the exploitation of labor this system thrives on. This is most clear in a string of missions where he has a protagonist steal high-end cars only for him not to pay when everything is said and done.
Which is a polite way of saying I'm getting robbed? Are you fucking kidding me?
That is a short-sighted and frankly immature way of seeing things, Mr. Clinton.
Which was kind of a dick move, and that's really what his character boils down to. He's just an asshole. I mean, the game does a great job of making you hate him. His phony spiritualism, his constant down-talking to our characters, and his general belief he's invincible culminate to make him insufferable, but he's fairly one note. This in itself doesn't make him an awful antagonist for me though. I mean, I literally just spent the last 5 minutes hyping up Steve Haynes, and he could just as easily be described as a one-note asshole. But where Devon differs from Steve is for most of his screen time, he doesn't feel like an antagonist. He feels like a client. The majority of his missions are centered around stealing cars. It's not until he tries to destroy Michael's movie and sends mercenaries to his home does he feel like a threat. But this doesn't happen until the last few hours of the game, and by then, it's too late.
They came after my family.
All right. I don't know what to say. Does this change where you stand on the Union Depository?
Hell no. We move on that right away.
The game asks you to not only view him as a villain, but as the main antagonist without spending enough time building him up, which makes his ending feel unearned. Don't get me wrong, his death is satisfying. Getting to listen to Devon try to convince Trevor to set him free only to realize his vast amounts of money and resources are no match for a psycho who wants him dead always puts a smile on my face.
Me? I'm not rational. I don't care if you're useful or not. I feel like taking you out, Devo. So that's what I'm doing.
And the final scene where the trio rolls Devon's car into the ocean is iconic, but I can't help but feel that this is a payoff for a villain who wasn't fully established, especially when you compare him to someone like Steve, who was established as a villain from the start. If anyone deserved to be in that trunk, it was him. But while Devon still felt like a threat, this next antagonist failed to even do that.
You know what, dawg? It's good you back home. Glad you here. Missed you, boy. Damn, you definitely got hit up inside.
Hit up!
Strech is a veteran of the Chamberlain gangster families, the same gang Franklin is a part of. And from his introduction in the mission appropriately named The Long Stretch, the tension between the two is on full display.
Nah, I ain't missed you. Your ass could have stayed gone for good. So I fucked your girl, mugged your moms, and better yet, I ain't thought about your ass in years.
And there's no wonder why. Strech represents everything Franklin despises about the CGF. He's a man deeply loyal to the gang's hierarchy and demands respect for the OGs in the form of payment, no matter what. But Franklin sees these old traditions as a scam designed to keep him in the rat race.
Man, that's some fucking pyramid scheme bullshit.
On paper, this sounds like a great setup for conflict. You got a clear clash of ideologies, a shot caller benefiting from his years of loyalty to the CGF, and a young underling who wants to circumvent tradition and carve his own path. But there's one problem. After this mission, Strech basically disappears. Now, Strech does play a role in other missions. He sets up a fake drug deal to ambush the protagonist and later organizes with the Ballas to kidnap Lamar, but he never physically appears again until the finale. And these missions are so spread out from each other that Strech gets overshadowed by heists, government conspiracies, and Michael and Trevor confronting their past. And that's what's really frustrating about Strech as an antagonist. He has the framework to be interesting, but is so underutilized that he's just forgettable. It feels like Strech was just a loose end that the game forgot about and haphazardly tied at the last minute.
Well, who's the guy who set up Lamar?
Stretch, you want to throw him in?
I'll be honest, the first time I beat GTA 5, I completely forgot who Strech even was. And the game already has something to help make Strech more memorable. After doing some research, it turns out there are phone calls between Franklin and Strech, but you have to call him to hear them.
Hey, what up, Stretch?
Hey, man. Round the way, they saying you got this high-end whip lick on the go. Is that what's up?
Man, don't listen to them fucking snitches, homie. You know what's happening.
Where my cut, motherfucker? You got to bring the OG in, you dig?
Nah, I don't dig, motherfucker. I ain't into that pyramid shit no more. Man, that gangbanging time warp shit is done.
Man, when you win, little homie. I'm gonna get my end.
Is that right? Well, good luck with that.
I have beaten this game 8 times, and I had no clue that these even existed. I don't understand why the game hides this from you. Having Strech demand a cut of Franklin's earnings throughout the story would have helped build the tension that was established early on between these characters. But as it stands, Strech feels like a villain that should have been dealt with within the first few hours of the game, not saved for the finale. But for all my gripes with Strech, he's not the worst antagonist. That title goes to our next and final villain.
It costs a lot of money to track you down. I had to call in every favor I could in the Midwest. And then you kill several good men. Good day, huh?
Wei Cheng is a Chinese crime boss in charge of the Triads, and is the weakest antagonist the game has to offer. If you took the underwhelming death from Steve, the underdevelopment from Devon, and the lack of screen time from Strech, and put it into one person with no discernible personality traits, you would get Wei Cheng. Even as I'm writing the script, I'm struggling to find anything to say about him. He's primarily an antagonist to Trevor, who spends the majority of the game trying to hunt him down after he killed the O'Neill brothers, a group who were supplying Wei Cheng with drugs. For a guy who presumably has connections to the criminal underworld and resources to aid him in his hunt, nothing happens for the majority of the game. Something finally happens when Michael gets kidnapped, but there is roughly 30 missions between when Trevor angers Wei Cheng and Michael's kidnapping, making a moment that could have been suspenseful more jarring than anything. And once Michael is saved by Franklin a few missions later, Wei Cheng disappears from the storyline until the finale.
And Wei Cheng. W-E-I-C-H-E-N-G.
Really, he's just a forgettable character who is only a threat when the plot demands it, and the embodiment of the issues that plague the villains in this game. So when you look at GTA 5's antagonists as a whole, we see a reoccurring issue. Most of them are poorly utilized. Steve Haynes works because he is constantly present and applies pressure to a protagonist throughout the story, but the rest of the villains never reach that level. Devon only becomes a threat near the end, Strech disappears for most of the story, and Wei Cheng feels more like a plot device than a character. And I think that's why the final mission feels underwhelming. It tries to deliver a massive payoff by taking down all these antagonists at once, but most of them aren't built up enough to make that payoff fully satisfying. And the one antagonist that was given the proper development gets a very abrupt ending. Now, am I saying that the ending to GTA 5 is awful? No, absolutely not. Even though the antagonists aren't the most developed characters in fiction, it's still awesome to watch the trio come together and fix all their problems and one last hurrah before the credits roll. I mean, if I absolutely hated this ending, I wouldn't have been playing it for the last 13 years. The story is still amazing, it just has its flaws. But this is all just my opinion. If you guys think differently, let me know in the comments. Or if you enjoyed this and want to see more video game essays from me, subscribe so you don't miss when I upload. See ya!